Why is it that the people who reach the highest peaks in life are often the same ones who fall in the hardest? Why do those who face the most rejection somehow end up creating the greatest impact? The reason is simple: successful people have mastered the art of redirection. They've learned that every closed door, every lost opportunity, and every so-called failure isn't the end of the road, but a shift in direction, designed to bring them closer to their purpose. Most of us see setbacks as punishment, as proof that we are not capable or deserving, but in truth, they are signals. Life has a way of redirecting us when we begin to move off course. Yet very few people listen to those signals. Instead, they stop trying, doubting their potential, and labeling themselves as failures. Science supports this idea. Studies in neuroplasticity show that the brain grows stronger when faced with obstacles. Every challenge literally rewires our mind to adapt, learn, and evolve. That's why people who persist through hardship often develop sharper creativity, deeper resilience, and a stronger sense of direction than those who quit early. What we call failure is often the brain's way of upgrading us for the next level. The difference between success and defeat isn't intelligence or talent, it's how you interpret the struggle. Those who succeed don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "What is this teaching me?" Every setback carries within it the seed of redirection, and those who recognize it transform pain into progress, and rejection into power. From a young age, we are taught to believe that failure is the opposite of success. We're told that if we don't achieve something, it means we've lost, that our effort was wasted. This belief has quietly destroyed more dreams than any obstacle ever could. In truth, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the foundation of it. Every person who has ever achieved greatness, from scientists and artists to entrepreneurs and philosophers, has experienced repeated rejection, disappointment, and collapse. The difference lies in how they perceive it. Most people stop trying after the first few setbacks, not because they lack potential, but because they have been conditioned to see failure as shameful. They take it personally instead of strategically. Psychology explains that when we fail, our brain triggers the same areas that process physical pain. That's why rejection hurts. It's not just emotional, it's neurological, but what successful people do differently is they reinterpret that pain. Instead of associating it with defeat, they translate it into information. They ask, "Where did I go wrong, and what can I learn from it?" This simple shift, from emotion to evaluation, changes everything. It transforms pain into feedback, and fear into focus. The people who rise again are not necessarily more talented, they're simply more curious about their mistakes. If you observe closely, the people who fail and stop are usually focused on results, while the people who fail and grow are focused on process. The first group wants validation, the second group wants understanding. The first group asks, "Did I win?" The second asks, "What did I learn?" One question closes the mind, the other opens it. The most successful individuals understand that the journey to mastery is filled with breakdowns that force breakthroughs. They don't see a wall, they see a mirror, showing them what still needs improvement. The myth of failure is one of perception. Failure doesn't end your story, it begins your real education. Every setback, every rejection, and every loss is feedback from reality, telling you something about your approach, your mindset, or your timing. It's not life saying, "You're not good enough." It's life whispering, "Not this way." The tragedy is that most people never hear that whisper, they're too busy running from the discomfort. But if you stay, if you face it, if you study it, you'll realize that failure was never your enemy. It was your greatest mentor, patiently waiting for you to listen. Every time we face a setback, something remarkable happens inside the human brain. What feels like chaos and loss on the surface is actually a process of neurological adaptation. Science calls it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to challenge and change. When things don't go our way, when we face rejection, or when a plan collapses, the brain begins to search for new connections, new strategies, and new ways to interpret reality. In other words, every difficulty you experience literally reshapes your mind for resilience. But most people don't allow this transformation to happen, because they quit before the rewiring completes. They stop when the discomfort begins, unaware that their brain was preparing them for an upgrade. Studies from leading neuroscience institutions show that failure activates deeper cognitive processing. This means the mind works harder to understand, adapt, and improve after a setback than it does after success. Success feels good, but it rarely teaches. Failure, on the other hand, forces the brain to analyze, to question, to reevaluate assumptions. This is why those who keep going through adversity often develop sharper decision-making skills and emotional intelligence over time. Each failure becomes a training session for the brain, strengthening mental endurance and cognitive flexibility. Think about it. When a child learns to walk, they fall dozens of times. But every fall sends a signal to the brain, refining balance, coordination, and muscle memory. Without those small failures, walking would never be possible. The same law applies to every area of adult life. Every rejection letter, every lost opportunity, every mistake at work, it's all feedback for your internal system. Your mind learns patterns of what works and what doesn't, adjusting your direction automatically, if you're willing to keep moving. The most successful individuals unknowingly use this biological truth to their advantage. They treat life like an experiment. Each setback becomes data. They detach emotion from the event and observe the lesson. This scientific mindset gives them an edge, because while others drown in self-blame, they focus on problem-solving. The brain follows your interpretation that if you see failure as defeat, your brain shuts down creativity to protect you, but if you see it as redirection, your brain opens up possibilities. That single shift, from fear to curiosity, changes everything, because the truth is, the mind doesn't grow when you win. It grows when you're forced to rebuild. If you could draw the journey of success on a graph, it would never be a straight, rising line. It would look more like a series of waves: progress, fall, correction, and rise again. But here's the fascinating part: every new rise goes higher than the last, and every fall becomes less painful. This pattern is the rhythm of growth. Success is not about avoiding dips, it's about interpreting them correctly. Most people think their downfall means the end of their potential, but in reality, it's just a recalibration. Nature itself follows this rhythm. Waves, seasons, tides, even the heartbeat, all move in cycles of rise and fall. Growth is not linear, it's cyclical. When we experience success, we often grow comfortable. Comfort weakens attention. It makes us careless with our strategy, and blind to small flaws. A setback, however, acts as a wake-up call. It pushes us to observe, analyze, and evolve. The most important lessons of life are hidden inside these moments of discomfort. If you look closely, you'll notice that every major breakthrough in history, from scientific discoveries to artistic revolutions, came right after a period of deep struggle or failure. The human spirit expands only under pressure. There's a pattern to progress: challenge, reflection, adaptation, and advancement. Each time you repeat this loop, you grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. That's why successful people don't fear going back to zero. They know it's never truly zero. Every experience adds an invisible layer of understanding that can't be lost. You may lose money, status, or relationships, but the knowledge you gain from failure becomes your permanent foundation. Think of the story of any great entrepreneur, athlete, or philosopher. You'll find that their journey was a mosaic of collapses and comebacks. What separates them from the rest isn't luck, it's perspective. They understand that a fall doesn't erase progress, it refines it. With every setback, they gather data about what doesn't work, eliminating errors and moving closer to what does. Eventually, This pattern of reflection and redirection creates momentum that looks like overnight success to everyone else. The truth is, life will always test you. But those tests aren't meant to stop you, they're meant to stretch you. Once you understand that the downward parts of your journey are part of your ascent, you stop fighting them. You begin to trust the pattern. You realize that success isn't built in straight lines, it's built in spirals. Each turn feels like returning to the same place, but on a higher level. That's the real structure of growth, not linear progress, but layered transformation. Every word we use carries power. It doesn't just describe our experience, it defines it. The language you use internally, the words you attach to your struggles, and the labels you place on your situations quietly determine how you respond to life. When people call something a failure, they activate an emotional chain reaction: shame, regret, and fear. But when they rename that same experience as feedback or redirection, the entire emotional landscape changes. The situation remains the same, yet its meaning transforms. This is the psychology of perception. Reality doesn't shape your language shapes your reality. Cognitive scientists have long shown that our thoughts are formed through linguistic patterns. Words are not passive, they sculpt the structure of our beliefs. For instance, when you tell yourself, "I failed," your brain interprets it as final. It registers defeat. But when you say, "I learned," or "I was redirected," your brain stays active and creative. It searches for solutions instead of shutting down. This is not motivational fluff, it's measurable neuroscience. The brain's reticular activating system filters information based on what it believes is relevant. If your self-talk is defeatist, the mind stops looking for possibilities. If it's constructive, your awareness expands, and opportunities that were invisible begin to appear. Language is a mental lens. Two people can experience the same setback. One calls it the end, the other calls it a lesson, and their futures will unfold in completely different directions. History's greatest thinkers have understood this. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but how we interpret them. Modern psychology confirms the same. Perception creates experience. So when you replace negative vocabulary, words like failure, loss, or defeat, with feedback, learning, and progress, you are literally rewriting the emotional code of your mind. Every time you rename a painful event, you reclaim power over it. You shift from victim to observer, from hopeless to analytical. That single change alters not just your mindset, but your chemistry. Cortisol drops, dopamine increases, and you feel a renewed sense of control. Over time, this becomes your natural way of thinking. You begin to meet setbacks with curiosity instead of fear. You no longer collapse under pressure, because your language no longer gives permission to despair. That's why the words you choose matter more than you think. That you're not just describing your life story, you're authoring it, sentence by sentence. The question is, are you writing tragedy, or transformation? Once you understand that failure is feedback, and language shapes perception, the next step is to master redirection, the ability to consciously turn setbacks into stepping stones. Every obstacle, no matter how painful, hides a direction you haven't yet considered. Redirection isn't passive acceptance, it's active evolution. It's about taking the raw energy of disappointment and channeling it into analysis, innovation, and reinvention. The world's most resilient people share this one habit. When something doesn't work, they don't just move on, they move through. They dissect, learn, adjust, and re-emerge stronger than before. Take any real-life story of transformation: entrepreneurs who went bankrupt, artists who were rejected hundreds of times, scientists whose theories failed for years, and you'll see the same thread. They used their lowest moments as a map. Failure didn't push them off the path, it revealed the correct one. That the art of redirection begins with awareness. When something falls apart, pause and ask, what truth is this trying to show me? Maybe it's revealing that your methods are outdated, your mindset is limited, or your purpose has evolved. Pain is often a message, a silent invitation to upgrade the system. From a strategic point of view, redirection is innovation in disguise. Every breakthrough in human history, from electricity to the internet, emerged from someone investigating a failure. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb on his first attempt. He simply gathered feedback thousands of times until he discovered what didn't work. The same law applies to life itself. Each setback is data. Redirection is the ability to interpret that data accurately and use it to move forward intelligently. But to practice redirection, you must let go of ego. Ego clings to plans and expectations. It wants life to follow a perfect script. Awareness, on the other hand, adapts. It listens to change and follows the signs. True success belongs to those who can shift without losing focus, who can bend without breaking. That's the art of redirection, transforming resistance into rhythm, and uncertainty into movement. Because life doesn't punish you when things go wrong, it prepares you. Every obstacle is an invitation to grow wiser, to think deeper, and to rise again with more clarity. When you master redirection, you stop fearing change altogether. You understand that every ending is simply life's way of rewriting your beginning. In the end, success isn't about reaching a destination, it's about who you become on the way. Every setback you faced, every rejection, and every disappointment was never meant to destroy you. It was shaping you, sharpening you, and preparing you for the version of yourself that could handle the success you once dreamed of. The truth is, life doesn't give us what we want immediately, it tests if we're ready for it. And those tests often come disguised as failures, but once you understand that failure is feedback, and feedback is direction, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What next?" If you trace the stories of the most successful people in history, you'll find a pattern. None of them had a straight path. Their journeys were made of detours, pauses, and breakdowns that became breakthroughs. What separated them from the rest wasn't luck or talent, it was perception. They didn't run from their failures, they studied them. They didn't cling to their plans, they adapted to life's signals. That's what real intelligence looks like, not resisting change, but working with it. The truth is, every failure carries hidden value, each mistake holds a lesson, and each rejection redirects you closer to where you're supposed to be. When you adopt this mindset, life stops being a fight, it becomes a dialogue. You begin to trust the process, even when it's uncomfortable. You begin to understand that pain is not punishment, it's information. The universe doesn't shut doors to keep you out, it shuts doors to push you toward better ones. So, the next time life doesn't go according to plan, don't call it failure. Don't even call it loss, call it redirection, because every ending is simply the beginning of a wiser chapter. You are not behind, you are being guided, you are not broken, you are being rebuilt. And if you can hold on to that belief, if you can see meaning in the chaos, then you've already succeeded, because the most powerful people in the world are not the ones who never fell, they're the ones who learned how to rise, again and again, until life itself began to follow their direction.